Right, good morning. My name is Jenna Stern. I am an actress, a photographer, a wife, mother, teacher, coach, and tennis player. 6 months ago, a Google alert awakened me. I was fairly certain that it was for the London-based makeup artist, Jenna Stern, that this alert was for. She and I vie for various social media accounts. I've got Twitter. She's got Pinterest. It's okay. Now, this particular alert not only had my name, but also my photo. So bleary-eyed, I opened it, and it stated that I was to be a keynote speaker at the North American Conference on Media, Film, and Cultural Studies. I'll back up a bit. Dr. Picken, as you just heard, was my professor over 20 years ago in Japan. Over 20. Oh, sorry. It's true. At Kokusai Christokyo Daigaku. We've remained friends ever since, and in fact, he did me the honor, as he said, of traveling over with his wife Hong Wen and conducting my wedding in 1998. Earlier this year, he and I exchanged emails about maybe sitting on a panel here, representing the actor's perspective, a panel discussion, answering some questions. But this alert said I was to be keynote. It was better than a cup of coffee. I emailed him and told him, I said, well, that's certainly one way to make sure that I show up. Terrified at first. I've never given such a speech, and the more I thought about it, though, the more excited I got. And indeed, I'm thrilled and honored to be here today speaking to you about media, film, and culture, an actor's perspective. I asked Dr. Picken what exactly he thought I could contribute to this forum, this conference. I'm not an academic. I had to look up what an abstract was and a plenary session. But he wrote back, pick up a pet theme. While IAFOR is a serious professional association, we are also very flexible. Key terms are intercultural, interdisciplinary, and international. Sky's the limit. Well, with that in mind, I turn to basically the one topic on which I feel like a true expert, and that is simply my own life, my own experiences, which I would characterize as just that, intercultural, interdisciplinary, and international. Now, I've written and rewritten this talk several times, and it has kept changing up until the point that I decided to make it more personal and more about a very particular experience these past few years. I was out of work for almost 2 years. Not only that, but the auditions were fewer and fewer. It was the first time in my career that I didn't know if I was going to make enough money to qualify for insurance. Plan 1, which is the top tier I've always had, is a minimum of $30,000 earned. I changed agents. I took new headshots. I redesigned my website. I was on Twitter. I reinvested in myself, but there was little return. While perceived as a working actor, my gender, my age, my relatively low spot on the career ladder were all combining rapidly to deny me opportunity. So this is the dilemma I'd like to talk about today. How do you survive in this business as a creative person? And I'm not just talking about being an actor, it applies to any creative. Artists, directors, writers, dancers, filmmakers. How do you survive and create your work and get paid for it, let alone the insurance? Now, what I want to discuss today is something that I call creative pluralism. It's been my route through an artistic life and how many performers and creatives survive as artists, as people, as professionals. Now, there's creativity in every field, however, so even if you don't label yourself an artist, I think this might resonate with you. Throughout our young lives, we're trained and encouraged to find our area of expertise, to narrow our education and higher learning into a progressively more specialized field. We're told that to be successful, we need 10,000 hours. Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, The Story of Success, popularized that concept, which actually can be traced back to a 1993 paper written by Anders Ericsson, a professor at the University of Colorado. And while I respect that theory, that concept, I posit that it is not only possible but also vital to maintain the full complement of your interests along the way. As an actor, I am sometimes recognized but not famous, and yet I have worked with actors such as Marlon Brando, Johnny Depp, Bruce Willis, Will Smith, Kate Mulgrew, Roy Scheider, James Gandolfini, and amazing directors such as Sidney Pollack, Barry Levinson, David Chase, Richard Donner, Michael Mayer, Ron Daniels. I have spoken the words of Shakespeare, Ibsen, Chekhov, Kushner. I married an actor. It's how we make our living, pay our mortgage. We own an apartment. Pay for our child's education and sometimes a nice vacation. We are fortunate and grateful. And my husband and I, we each have a master's from the top acting schools in the country, NYU Graduate Acting and Yale School of Drama, respectively. And we have no idea how our year will unfold, either financially, career-wise, schedule-wise, even location. There is absolutely no security. Instability is our only constant. We chose this. Acting is a silly way to make a living, as my husband says. And the passion and artistry of putting on a show and revealing humanity unto itself is quickly diminished by how are you going to pay the rent and put food on the table? In this country, they seem to be mutually exclusive to all but a few at the top of the heap, and yet we persist because it's what we love and what we're good at. I mean, scores of us, actors, directors, dancers, an even more limited lifespan in that career, musicians, all trained and struggling to make a living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, for years. So how do we survive? I've painted houses, waited tables, prepared food, taught English, sold soap, commercials, voiceovers, books on tape. I've used my skills and creativity and channeled them into other more reliable occupations and endeavors for as long as it took to get back to my craft. I had to diversify, get more creative. My husband and I have been able to survive as a pack. One of us is always working. And on-camera commercials and voiceovers have supplemented our income much like a second job waiting tables or temping. In fact, my recurring role as a judge now on Law and Order is what I call my waitressing gig. I have the best seat in the house. I just wear a long black robe and I get to see everything. They all play to me. And somewhere along the line, the camera turns around and actually gets my stuff. But before we were married, however, and early on in my career, right out of school, I was on a plane back from Los Angeles, this was after Japan, with about $130 to my name. I had tested for 5 different TV shows that pilot season and was returning to New York having been passed over on every job. So there I was on the plane making a list of what I could do to make rent in a couple of weeks. I had put all my chips in and had come away with nothing but an asterisk by my name and my picture up at several casting offices at having tested for the role. I decided on teaching English, which I had done to earn extra money in Japan, but because I couldn't bear to return to the kitchen prepping food. I went down to Wall Street to interview at a language school, and that same week I happened to audition and was cast in an MCI, doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think, TV commercial, which they ran immediately and often. And 26-year-old me with my 2 blonde elementary school daughters on this commercial, within 2 weeks of that shoot day, I had a check in my hand for over $10,000. It's absurd. And the sort of thing that makes you believe momentarily in signs from the universe. The next 10 years or so was busy shooting films and television and doing plays on and off Broadway. I got married. My husband was accepted after we were married to the Yale School of Drama. We split our life with our 2 cats between Brooklyn and New Haven. And when my career paused initially as a new mom, I was taking pictures because I was in love with my kid. But I also slowly remembered that this was in fact one of my passions, that I had spent many, many hours in high school and college in the darkroom processing images, many hours looking at light and critically viewing my surroundings, I suddenly remembered that this had been a significant part of my life, growing up as a kid. Studying acting and focusing on the craft of my profession had been an all-consuming activity for many years, and I had forgotten about these other passions and interests. It was a revelation to me when I picked up a now digital camera and found my way back, rediscovering my artistic self as a photographer. With the camera, I actually created product, not just interpreted it. I felt like I contributed more as an artist in this medium. I also had to learn a whole new language of post-production, no more darkroom, but Lightroom and Photoshop. And while I continued to work as an actor, the camera was with me most days. Now, after several years, I realized that I needed a website to show my work. People were asking to see some stuff, a portfolio. And if I was to get a website, I had better figure out a name, a brand, as it were, because I didn't want there to be any confusion between my actor self and my photographer self, although truthfully at that point, my actor self, there wasn't much happening. I had a list of domain names other than my own name, and in September 2013, I started a photography business. Lulu Pix Studio was born. LOULOUPIX.net. Now, calling myself a photographer was difficult at first. It was only when I heard my friend introduce me on his podcast interview as Jenna Stern, actor, wife, mother, photographer, that it really sank in that photography was truly part of my identity. And at this point, I had been getting paid to take pictures for several years, but unable to own the profession. The business side of photography was elusive, embarrassing even. I often gave away my work. My art was difficult to quantify and sometimes still remains so. I have no hesitation quantifying my worth as an actor, by the way. But as a photographer, it was and sometimes is problematic. During this low point as an actor, my husband was very busy. Ups and downs. He was traveling back and forth, coast to coast, working on various series as a guest star, recurring roles, feature films for months at a time in New Orleans. I panicked a little, wondered about my so-called career, but I was thrilled to have the time with our daughter, coach her softball team, play tennis with her, build my photography business. I was busy shooting portraits. I called on, and headshots. I called on friends that I had been to school with. Ben Shankman there, who's quite a busy actor, was my classmate. I did my final scene work with him at school. That's my guy. Yeah, nobody else will get that picture. That was for me. Portraits as well, kids, having a great time, even a line of accessories. This is a former model who went to Fashion Institute and has designed this line of accessories, and she's modeling the work. It was an amazing photo shoot because I turned around and there she was on. I was like, whoa, that's a professional model. Yeah, just start taking pictures because she was amazing. I donated my work to auctions. I was networking. My daughter's school. I actually skied into the park and saw this and took this picture. And this was one of the pieces that we donated to the school. Also, Open House New York, a prominent New York architecture and design organization. I met editors. I signed large art prints of my work. And it allowed me to remain creative outside of my chosen profession, and in fact led me to a second profession. But photography is really just a placeholder for what any of you feel passionate about, what keeps your creativity flowing. It could be stamp collecting or volunteering or learning a new language. The pursuit of that passion, I believe, will inform your chosen profession by keeping you open and positive and present in your own life. So after nearly 2 years of little acting work, changing agents, and continual rejection, I seem to have landed back on my feet squarely on one of the top shows on air presently. Yesterday, that was a good phone call to get from my agent. I just finished a 3-episode arc on season 3 of House of Cards. They've just actually asked if I can come back for the 10th episode, so it might be 4-episode arc. I'll also be performing next month on stage in a live radio podcast called The Thrilling Adventure Hour. I don't know if any of you listen to that. It's fantastic. And there are 2 self-driven photography projects that I have. One is New York City Icons, and the other is a project called Access, Artists at Work. It's an ongoing project of artists and their workspace and how they organize their inspiration. It's really a combining of everything that I've been trying to establish with other artists, to be present together in an honest hour. It's very low key, technically speaking. I don't bring in lights. My only request is an honest hour while they're working. It's a portrait of sorts, but not the one of them smiling or not smiling in front of their work. So, in conclusion, I am an actor, a photographer, a wife, mother, teacher, coach, and tennis player. It makes for a very complicated business card. My position is that the question children are asked, what do you want to be when you grow up, has earned a more complex response. I want to support your determination to challenge yourself creatively. It's not follow your bliss, dream big, unlock your potential, or any of the other cliched inspirational poster quotes, but rather take stock. Honestly, take inventory and do your work to be the best you can be across all your interests, your pursuits. I mean, I know that for me, I bring as much creativity to the tennis court as I do to parenting, photography, and acting. I've only figured out a way to get paid for 2 of those so far. But there's creativity in every field of study, and to balance that artistic instinct with the technique to support that passion is our life's work. So what do you want to be when you grow up? The answer is now D, all of the above. If your passion is there and you're willing to work for it, do it all. Don't discriminate against any of your talents. Evolve, adapt, use every piece of yourself, your creativity, to create a life that means something to you. Find a way to get paid for it that doesn't make you feel like either a thief or a fool. Embrace all your passions. You will find a way to fold it into your life and into your career. I think that was right. Yeah. Oh well, something like that. Thank you very much.